Hello to anyone and everyone who's watching this, the RPA podcast, Clear the Air. I'm going to just call it, this is a very special media episode. And if all goes well, we might get picked up for an episode 2. I'm Lisa Herdman. I run the National Video Investment Team at RPA within the RPA Media Practice. I also have an extra special addition to my title called Marketplace Intelligence, which is kind of what I feel like this whole thing is going to fall under. This one next to me is Jim Helberg. He is Chief Media Officer, and in a minute, he's going to tell you why he's the Chief Media Officer, because of all kinds of things he's done before. So what we're going to try and get across in this podcast, and hopefully others, because our goal ultimately is to have a theme song and maybe even a consistent segment and maybe an extra special something else. But our goal is to literally get across to you what Jim and I talk about weekly, if not bi-weekly, which is the media marketplace, the media landscape, the world in which we live within media, because it is literally nonstop and it requires conversations every day. And every day we get off a Zoom call because he lives in Oklahoma. We both say, oh, we should have recorded that. That was a good one. So we're going to try and do it now. So first, please introduce yourself again and give us a little bit of background from your career. It'll qualify you as Chief Media Officer, and then we can talk about what we want to talk about.
So I'm Jim Helberg, Chief Media Officer at RPA. This is my 41st year in advertising, most of which has been spent in Los Angeles. Lots of car accounts, packaged goods, airlines, all that kind of stuff. So I outlived a lot of people and became the Chief Media Officer, and now I get to work with you.
See, the best part of it. My favorite part about you, professionally, is you've literally been everywhere. And so for someone like me who's been here, I forgot to say, 32 years, sometimes I feel like I've been everywhere because I've worked on so many different clients, but you've been at different agencies, you've been in different cities, you've been on the sales side. You've seen it all, done it all. Oh, and by the way, you're a professor, so you teach it all. And my most favorite thing about you is you don't live up here in a leadership role where you have no idea what's happening, which is why we get to do a podcast, because you get to talk about things that I like to talk about. I've thought a lot about how we should craft this, and then I threw everything out because I don't think everything should be crafted as much, because again, when we have our conversations, we don't really craft them. We literally talk about what's happening the day of, because I think you agree, and you've actually taught me, the only way we can be the best for our clients from a media perspective, and arguably from a creative and, overarching strategy and everything else, is to understand what's happening in our environment. And I would argue that the media industry right now has never been faster, moving faster, has never been more challenging, and to us, never been more exciting. But it's a trick to be had. You have to stay on top of it. So that's what we talk about. So I'm going to ask you 3 things that you think right now today are the most important things, and by important I mean could have impact on our clients if we don't stay ahead of it. I have 3 too, but you go.
That's a tough one.
I know. Only 3 is tough.
Only 3 is tough. But I think first and foremost, and you'll say this is an easy out for me, but being relentlessly focused on business outcomes and not just simply media chops and KPIs and clicks and all these kinds of things. Developing and nurturing a media practice where business outcomes are the ultimate journey we're trying to get to a destination with. And training our people to be that. And that is not commonplace in our industry. Our industry is, you work in media, you work in creative, you work in whatever. We're a full service media practice inside of a full service agency. Our job is to bring all the disciplines together to solve a business issue, day in and day out.
Okay, so it's a good one. And I will call you out.
It's a brilliant
like
one.
that. It's really
okay. But the second one is run as fast as you can on this gerbil wheel in terms of looking at different options and opportunities and who's got the best mousetrap today is not what the answer is tomorrow. And the business has always moved fast. Even 40 years ago, when the earth was still cooling and I was starting. But the business has always moved fast, but not like this. And I think it's as much about where's it going than the speed.
Yeah.
So what we think we've got nailed in one of our conversations, the next day, you and I are on the phone going,
just kidding.
Did you see that headline? Like we were completely in left field. Or look at us, we got it right today. Third is audience. No matter what we're doing from a discipline standpoint in media, how refined are our audiences? That drives everything. If marketing and media are an investment, and we all know they're an expense, but if marketing and media are investments, how do you spend as little as possible? We talk about reducing the cost of selling, which sounds like kind of a clunky term, but it's not about rates and media negotiations and all that. It's moving a consumer from consideration to conversion with as little time, friction, and money required. That right there takes the media chops off the table. Yeah, you got to have all those to get it done, but we're talking to CFOs more often than we're talking to CMOs, if you really think about it. And their sense of humor is pretty short. It's about one thing. And when you are representing or stewarding on behalf of them, a third or fourth largest expense in their company, the media budget, you better come with your game face.
Better have their business at the center of it.
And that's a new kind of stress.
Yeah.
But a good one. I'd say it's like we have more of a calling today than we ever did.
We are more valuable today than we were 40 years ago. It's going to be on our t-shirt.
Okay.
Now
that's a raise.
And then our other t-shirt, what was it? You're welcome. I just think it was you're welcome. We know stuff. You're welcome. That was your other t-shirt. Your three, I would say two overlap in a way with mine. Mine are a little bit more tactical, which definitely shows you're strategy based. I'm a little bit more investment based, so a little bit more tactical. But I do like your business outcomes part of what you said because it helps people like me know where to go because it's moving so fast and because there's 900 things coming at us to say, use this, try this. It's going to be faster for you. It's going to be more efficient. You're going to get better ROI. Knowing what the business outcome is for each of our clients allows us to go, okay, nope, not that. Nope, not that, even though it's the new shiny object. And sometimes I think people are like, oh, it's the new shiny object. We absolutely have to try it and put out a press release and tell them how great it is and tell them which client we're working with. And that is not what we're in the business for. We're in the business to help our clients with their business outcomes. So that is a very clarifying point for us when we have all these things coming at us. I did have audience on mine. Mine was audience targeting because that's a wonderful new, it's not new, it's the most evolved part of our business. We're beyond age and gender. We get to look at lifestyles. We get to look at income. We get to look at purchase behavior, that kind of thing. It causes a ton more challenges because we're just not doing this in a vacuum. We have to work with the many, many, many media partners out there, and not everybody's as up to speed as we would like them to be. And that also becomes very client specific. So no longer can we, remember we used to have a lot of clients and there'd be like 4 of them that were buying against adults 25-49. We're like, okay, good. And not really from an investment, but from a knowledge perspective. We know that this does well. We are so beyond that. It's so very customized. My third one is actually my third and fourth one, because this is really going to bring you into our one-on-ones. There are 2 things that you and I can't not talk about every time we get together. Can you guess? Sports. I really think we should talk about that because I think that's super interesting. And then the other one is consolidation of media companies. Every time we turn around, somebody's buying somebody, somebody's laying somebody off. We can't keep track. And exactly. And that's where I think one of these we should get into why RPA is so great at media. And that should be the title. Why are we so good at media? Because we talk about and think about and share with our clients, what does it all mean? Which is why we can't stop talking about it, because we have to be on top of it. So if, should I pick a client? No, just pretend you're talking to a client. If we were talking to a client about sports, what would we say, and what would we say it means for the future?
Just to clarify,
Yes.
we gossip with a vision.
I know.
Okay.
That's true.
So,
It's true, which is why they're so fun.
sports. It's the only reach vehicle we can actually talk about. And I'm talking about, obviously, live sports at the highest level, but it's the only reach vehicle. We shouldn't call it prime time anymore. There is no
such thing.
So sports is the only bigger blunt object we can use. And every modeling scenario we use shows sports has a ginormous impact on business outcomes, because it can brand, it can go mid-funnel, it can go lower funnel. Part of it's the passion of the viewer, part of it is the upscale nature of it. So you got a lot of people who are heavy product users, but it also gets attention for kind of a negative reason, which is how expensive it is and how expensive it is going to become. And that's not driven by the media. That's driven by the rights deals. You and I are constantly talking about rights deals. And it's like, if you sign a new rights deal, if you're a network and you are now at an 80% increase, you're never going to recover that from advertisers. So where does that revenue come from? And it opens up the door, as you know better than anybody, to creative negotiations. But how long can we sustain this? And like we've talked ad nauseum, as we should, it used to be ABC, CBS, NBC, Fox, ESPN. Those were the big guys with the big paycheck, or the big checkbooks, to be in the rights game and to broadcast, and certainly had the experience and quality of production. The nouveau riche, if you will, and very riche, Amazon, Microsoft, Google,
Netflix.
These guys can write a check and not even blink. Should they? And can they do it the right way? I think we've seen both.
Well, I'm going to talk about that specifically, so keep going.
But I think that gets to the whole consolidation thing. At some point, usually the one with the most money wins. And what you're seeing with what you said about merger and acquisition and consolidation and giant layoffs and all that is all in service of profitability and margin. And some who we've grown up with as the legacy behemoths, are riding that razor thin.
Yeah.
And those who got into this business as their second or third priority,
In profit center, so what doesn't really matter.
behind home delivery, has
Exactly.
nothing to do with media.
Yeah.
It's not about liquid assets, right? But it's going to be about expertise. And I still believe, and I know you do, we need a cross-pollination of talent in this industry. And I'll be rude, I'll say it. We need adults in the room
Everywhere.
at some of these places that have all the money in the world, because they got to have a business plan around these giant properties. And
they have to take care of our money. I mean, that's our job, is to make sure that our clients are in the smartest and most strategic places for them. But that's, to your point, a ton of money. And if they, the newcomers, I'll call them out all day, if they don't know what they're doing and they can't take care of my client's money, I am totally gun shy in spending that money on behalf of our clients, because at the end of the day, it comes back to us if it's not done right. And so your point is so important about it's the second or third profit center for them, which means it's the second or third thing they care about. So the relationships are out the door, the understanding of the product they're selling is out the door, the technology either works or it doesn't. And then it just becomes this demand, investment, sale, whatever. And it's very, very challenging to maneuver, and very sensitive times right now. So you say legacy, and by the way, you said legacy. I taught you not to say traditional. I hate the word traditional. So our legacy.
look at my pants, I'm traditional. But I think that,
You are traditional.
I think, and I don't want to beat people up. They can do that themselves. But if we're talking to a legacy media company
Mm-hmm.
versus one of the newer large entities that are now in the media business and trying to put together products in a more legacy way, it starts with the very first question they ask us. A legacy media company will say, Jim, what keeps you up at night?
Mm-hmm.
The newer behemoths, can we write a joint business plan? What do you think your spending level might be?
I just blood boiling.
Now, we're not going to buy around them. You know, we need those partners, but that mentality, something we work really hard at not doing with our clients, is we're here to solve your problems and hopefully that will make us money. What keeps you up at night versus can we write a joint business plan for hundreds of millions of dollars? I don't think that's something we can sustain, you know?
We have certain sales entities that like to structure around verticals, if you will, certain categories of our clients. And I am always saying, I don't need your help in my client's business. They have us and they have themselves. They are experts in their business. So these joint business plan, like we don't need them. And to your point, it's not about how much money we're going to spend. It's why we're going to spend it with you. And you tell us why. You tell us what your product is. Be informed with your own product, and the money will come easier because those two will match up at some point. But it's a scary time. And what I worry about, I know we talked about this, I think even the last time we talked, like at what point do we start talking about multi-year deals for our clients for sports? Because these are just going to get more expensive and more expensive and more expensive. And how are we going to cap that? How are we going to make it so this has a longer life versus just going bankrupt with these media investments? Or at a certain point, I remember there's a certain point when TV got so expensive, people were like, yeah, we're done. We're not going to do that anymore. And we tried very hard when we got into the streaming business to kind of change gears to make sure that that never happened. Like we're starting really, really low and smart and strategic versus just these one-offs. But
I mean, we were raised in this business to believe multi-years was a good thing.
yeah,
It was a relationship. It was a continuity play. Then came rough markets with the particularly 2008, 2009 recession of give me flexibility at all costs. And if that means that I have to give up these blue chip assets, I will.
Yeah.
So then we all recranked it with our partners to get that kind of financial flexibility. So out the window goes the longer term commitments. Maybe that was good.
Yeah.
My fear now is what's long term,
Right.
and who's going to be there long term.
Yeah.
And some days I think we're betting on horses.
Yeah.
And we've always had to pick to win, but it was never quite as divisive, I guess, in terms of who has the best shot.
We're not talking politics. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
No, I
hear divisive and I get all triggered.
I know. Okay. They'll panic.
Okay.
The conversations I want to be having, what we're paid to do for our clients, I want to have conversations with the people at the top of these companies, and we are, about what is their vision?
Yeah.
Is their vision more than one quarter and we got to lower our overhead? Because that tells us a lot.
Mm-hmm.
Is our vision, we got more money than we could ever know what to do with because our two other businesses are doing great? What did you want to talk about in media? Like, okay, that's a non-starter. So I think we sound grouchy, but we're not. I think
We're hungry for information.
right. The world of marketing requires more guarantees.
Mm-hmm.
That's soft guarantees than ever before. Because client budgets and client vision has gotten shorter and shorter and shorter in terms of, and rightfully so, what they're willing to do. If it had been 35 years ago in that advertising and marketing world when COVID hit, imagine the deals that were firm and locked up
And done.
and nothing you can do about them. And there was nobody basically to advertise to because you didn't have product on the ground, right? It proved to us anything can happen.
Yes.
And we're still coming out of it.
Yeah.
You know, we're faced with scary levels of consumer confidence. Some days it's okay, but when you look at it as a trend line, that's driving so much of what's happened.
Mm-hmm.
And that gets translated to the C-suites and the instability of what can we really bet on? A lot of unknowns. And you know this, all the tools we've always been able to go to don't really work.
No, and new tools are coming. I think you just struck something because COVID was such a horrible time. And maybe this is for another episode, but the idea of relationships and the power of relationships to help us navigate through exactly what we're talking about cannot be undervalued, cannot be underestimated. I don't care how much technology you throw at us. I don't care how much automation we want to use. If we don't have those relationships on behalf of our PA and on behalf of our clients out there in that marketplace with all that money floating around, we would not be half as good as we are right now. And I think that is super, super important and gets us to where we want to be. Right. Relationships. That reminds me. We have so many things that we should talk about on something like this. I keep threatening just to hit record on our Teams calls and then we can just send it to these talented people and they can edit them. But
no, I think our goal is to talk about the stuff everybody's talking about, but say it out loud. You know,
even if it's kind of ugly.
Yeah. And we're not pointing fingers at anybody. This is the realities of the business. And we've been doing this a long time and the rules don't apply that we were raised on. And I think
but we were raised on rules. So we know that some can apply. We just got to mess with them a little bit. And I think that's where the value comes in.
Well, we think there's room for guardrails.
Yes.
But people are playing by different sets in the game. And that's where I think we've got to have a bit of a reset.
Yep.
And
it's worth a daily.
I look forward to talking more about not individuals, but how the larger media companies are being run.
Yep.
And what's motivating them. And it's completely different from one to the other. And to say, yes, everybody wants to make money. Okay, check that box.
Fine, got it.
But after that, how you get there and the relationship they have with the consuming public is very different.
What if we brought in special guests? We can do that.
Or we could call people.
We could call people with a speakerphone.
Like a lifeline.
Here. Yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that's it.
We'll be back. We'll be back.
Bye.